Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today, and to our friends on live stream and later on YouTube. Also, thank you for joining us. I'm Jenna Taylor. I'm one of your food program managers here in the Bay Area, and I'm super excited to welcome you to our panel in honor of Women's History Month. We are graced with the presence of three amazing female culinarians: Traci Des Jardins, Joanne Weir, and Tanya Holland. Welcome to Google.
Thank you. It's all good.
So I assume everybody here knows you well, as I do, but introduce yourself. Give me how do you identify yourself, knowing you're all women of many talents? When you meet someone, you say, I'm Tanya, I'm
chef and owner of Brown Sugar Kitchen restaurant in Oakland.
Which
Always
is
like
delicious.
to make sure people know it's in Oakland. Yeah.
Love it. What about you, Joanne?
So I do a lot of different things. I'm a cookbook writer. I've written 17 cookbooks. I own a restaurant in Sausalito, Copita, modern Mexican. I have a television show. I've been on television for 17 years, PBS and Create. And there's one more thing. Oh, and I actually teach all over. I'm really a teacher first. I probably should have said teaching first. But I rent villas in Italy, France, Spain, Morocco, and Greece, and I spend 4 weeks each year, spring and fall, to take people to spend a week with me in these beautiful villas. So I do a lot of different things. I love my job. I love my job.
Sounds like a job worth loving. Yeah, absolutely. Traci, what about you?
I always introduce myself as Traci Des Jardins, chef and restaurateur. I'm based in San Francisco. I like to call myself a cook. Yeah, that's how I started out. That's what I still am. I'm sort of most grounded in that world of that tactile relationship with food. So that's kind of. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, I'm very interested in that. How did you start out? What made you want to become a cook or a chef?
I went to college when I was 16, graduated from high school early and went to UC Santa Cruz and kind of bottomed out pretty quickly. And I had a passion for two things, skiing and cooking. And I'd taken cooking on as a hobby when I was in high school and skied my whole life. And my parents were really pissed at me, so they weren't going to support my desire to be a ski bum. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to become a cook. And I quickly landed in a really serious kitchen in Los Angeles. And then I didn't ski for like 15 years, so it didn't exactly turn out the way that I had intended, but I can't complain.
So first, let me say, I also went to UC Santa Cruz.
You did? Right.
So you're in the presence of multiple banana slugs.
All right, cool.
But beyond, you also went to Europe and trained, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Tell us just a little bit about what that's like, not only as an American, which I know makes it difficult, and as a woman. Do you feel like it was a different experience?
Yeah, so this was, I went to France to work for the first time in 1986. And I worked in 4 different kitchens in France. 2 of them were 3-star kitchens, and 2 of them Michelin 3-star kitchens, and 2 were 2 stars. I was the only woman in all of those kitchens. And I was the only American in 3 out of 4 of those kitchens. And so it was. I was kind of way ahead of the curve in terms of people who started sort of looking at going to Europe and studying food. At that point in time, there were really not restaurants in the United States that were of that same caliber. We didn't have restaurants then like the French Laundry and Alania and all of these sort of Michelin 2- and 3-star restaurants. And so if you really wanted that kind of exposure, you had to go to France. And France was kind of the stronghold at that point in time for that tier of restaurants. So it was very difficult, to answer your question. It was, I didn't speak French when I went, although I had food technology, those terms were part of the vernacular that we use in kitchens here. But it was a new frontier. But I lived and breathed what I was doing and had a strong desire to take what I could from that experience. And so I could ignore a lot of the stuff that was really challenging.
I think we all learn how to filter that stuff out when we're doing what we love, right?
Exactly.
Joanne, what about you? How did you decide you wanted to be a chef or a cook?
I don't think I really had a choice. My mother was a professional cook, my grandfather, my great-grandmother. So for me, it was just, I learned food from the time I was, an infant. I mean, food was very important in my family's home. I remember going and spending every single Saturday during the summer at my grandfather's farm in the Berkshires, and he, had butchered the chicken, he had made the rolls, he had everything, made homemade mayonnaise, he made potato chips, we would sit under the maple trees, and there were these beautiful maple trees that he had even made his own maple syrup, and we would have maple walnut ice cream for dessert that he had hand churned. So for me, I thought every kid grew up like that. I really did. I just had this very charmed, delicious kind of upbringing from both sides of my family. So I think for me, really, food was just something that was just in my blood.
It's just life.
But I did go to school. I studied fine arts and also art education, and I taught in Boston for a few years before I said, oh my God, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And then I went to study, and then I studied cooking with Madeline Kamen. So very strong female role models in my life, my mother and Madeline Kamen and Alice Waters. So that's kind of my background with food.
Love it. What about you, Tanya?
I've been fascinated with kitchens since I was little. So my, one thing I remember growing up, when I was 5, we moved into our first home. And in the garage, I had a miniature refrigerator, stove, and sink. And I was always in there, like, making something, I don't know. And then I got my Easy Bake Oven, and then my dad showed me how to make my first cake from scratch. And my parents are from the South, and they had this gourmet cooking club when I was growing up. So all our entertainment and social life was around, cooking and entertaining. So when I got to college, and like Joanne, I thought everybody lived like this. None of my fellow classmates knew how to cook. They were all ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly, and so I started hosting dinner parties and started studying. Ended up with a degree.
It worked out okay.
Yeah. Ended up with a degree in Russian language and literature. Didn't really do a lot with that until 2 years ago, which I'll explain later. Yeah. But and then after school, I started working in restaurants in college. But I worked in the front of the house for 7 years before I went to cooking school in France. And then, I knew I wanted to be a restaurateur, but I really wanted to know the food. A lot of the most successful restaurants are chef owner operated. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, how do you feel that kind of front of house time informs your experience as a restaurateur?
Oh, it's great. It's significant, and I think both sides should, experience working on both sides. You have understanding for their needs of, timing and information and education as a chef. You know what's necessary. Also, what's possible and what's not possible. But I think, it's really, it's really important.
One of the things we were talking about, spoiler alert, before we started, is this really fascinating correlation between what I see as women in tech and women in food. They're both, traditionally male-dominated industries. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done in order to get some measure of equity if we ever get there. I'm very interested in your thoughts on how can we move the needle? I mean, Google's trying to do a lot of work at our scale, but what does that look like in the food industry? How can we affect change in bringing more women to the fore? Anyone?
It seems so strange to me that we even say this, because I always think of women as the cooks, I mean, we're the nurturers. So for me, when I worked at Chez Panisse, I was the only woman, like Tracy, I was the only woman in the kitchen for about 3 years in the cafe. And honestly, I didn't think really anything about that. I didn't see it as odd. It's only now that I feel like I'm really looking at that much more. I don't know.
I used to think that that we should ignore sort of the gender. I mean, the way that I got through the obstacles that stood in my way was to never really think about it, and to kind of think of myself as just one of the guys and get through it. And for a long time, I sort of said, you can't focus on that, and didn't really believe that, as a female chef restaurateur, running a kitchen, that I should actually help or facilitate women's betterment in the kitchen, or really promote them, or give them an extra hand. I just thought, I'm going to treat everyone exactly the same, and I think that obligation actually needs to shift a little bit, and that we, who have made it, need to extend ourselves beyond just sort of that standard of treating everyone the same, and facilitate a leg up. And that doesn't mean that you have to make choices differently, or necessarily that you would hire somebody that was less talented per se, but just to give resources and support and access, and that's kind of something I've set about personally to do, is to kind of try and reach my hand out a little bit and give a leg up where I can.
I think that's great. One of the things I said to you before, I did this, I was a judge for the Good Food Awards, and I was telling you this. I was talking to John Scharfenberger, and we were just sitting there and having this great conversation. This young woman walked up and she said, Joanne, I want to talk to you just for a second. She said, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I want to thank you because you've been such a role model for women in the kitchen. And honestly, I was shocked. I had never, ever thought about that. And I'm telling you, that was like 2 or 3 years ago. I had never. And I'm just curious, have you ever thought about that yourselves?
I think about it all the time, personally.
I had never.
I want to quote this. There was a woman, I was at an event not too long ago, and she said a line, I was like, I'm going to say that. So I've been a black woman my entire life, okay? No. I don't know any other thing. So I don't know which experience is really affecting some of the challenges I've had.
Sure, right.
Am I being, is it gender or is it race? And it's both, and I can't really separate it.
Probably both,
right? So, but point is, I didn't see a lot of people who look like me doing what I want to do coming up in restaurants, and I never found the mentor that I wanted. So my goal is to mentor and to become that role model for young women of color, or people of color, or just whoever,
That's amazing,
wants to, get access to information, access to opportunity that, I blatantly did not receive because of, what I look like, whichever reason that could be. So
that's great. I think it's interesting because you go back between, I started my career in construction and now being in food, clearly both very male-dominated fields.
Right.
And I saw at a young age the choices were act like a man,
right,
or, be kind of ostracized as other. And I don't like either of those choices.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point, that I think that we have tried to define successful women in the same terms that we define successful men, and we're such different creatures that we need to actually come up with really different ways to value women's qualities, and they're not going to be qualities that are the same as successful men.
Nor should they be.
Nor should they be. Yeah. And that's where we have to really break out of this thinking. And I think that's where we get into this, powerful women are bitches, or, any of this kind of stuff.
Also, when we have similar attributes as men, if we're ambitious, if we're stern, if we're direct, then it's also translated in such a different language.
We're intimidating.
Yeah.
So bitchy.
Right.
Yeah. I was in a meeting with women, with several powerful women the other day, and a man kind of lost it in a very unprofessional way. And all the women in the room looked at each other like, we'd never get away with this.
Right.
But I'm so interested in a new paradigm. Yeah. Like, there has to be a way, to your exact point, to represent an other that can be prominent and unique and special, and doesn't have to be replicative of what's existing.
And that's the model that we need, and that we need to look for, and we need to support. Because I think you even see women categorizing women like that.
Very much so.
And that's, it's super problematic. We don't support each other, I think, often.
Absolutely.
And, we criticize certain attributes, and it's, that's just it's not going to get us where we need to go.
Well, and it's also the expectation that's set. This is definitely something that comes up in race discussions when people have low expectations. I've had that happen to me myself. They're like, you speak languages? You went to college? Like, yeah, I did. But also with women,
not just languages, Russian.
They don't. They don't expect us to, have these, to be driven, or they have expectations of like, oh, she's got to be matronly and nurturing, and I have people who that's their projection towards me. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need to pretend to be your mother, So there's like you said, something's got to change around.
And there's one more point I'd like to make on this because I think it's really important. I actually have not felt that much discrimination coming up in through the ranks, and I don't feel that my gender actually held me back. In sometimes I think it was a plus, but age. I just turned 50 last year, and now I'm really feeling that sense of discrimination in our world that I never felt before, and it is crushing. I mean, it makes me really angry. Because I think we've got a huge issue in this country in particular around age. True. And particularly, absolutely against women, because it's fine, it's...
You mean why you can't even tell your age, actually?
Well, I do. I make a point of doing it because...
Well, you might not have to.
But I think it works. Age can work in both directions. Like, I experience it as being a young woman in an industry where disrespected by older men.
Right.
So...
Yeah.
It seems the theme that I hear is that really erasing all of that categorically to have it be more about authenticity and representing, to your point, like an authentic self as a role model, not a woman or a specific type of role model, but just that seeing more successful, authentic people of all types be more prominent and outspoken about that could potentially have impact.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we don't all want to be defined by how we are outwardly.
Exactly.
I get that a lot, where I get, put into a box and defined by how I look, and I never define myself that way. But you realize when you go into a room or a space or whatever, and people they think they have you figured out.
Absolutely.
And we all do. I guess we all profile to a certain extent, but.
It seems that, absolutely. I think we do. And I think a lot, especially being at Google, about the way that technology and media and the accessibility of information, like this is going to be live stream and on YouTube, right? So what is essentially a pretty intimate conversation here could potentially reach, thousands of people, and I believe it will. What do you guys think about the ways that we can leverage technology to move this conversation across a larger scale? Is that useful? And if not, what do we do? Grassroots? Community? The Women's March around the... I was going to say on Washington, but I was in Oakland, and it was big
I was in Washington, and it was very, very powerful.
Clearly there's a presence there.
And peaceful and positive.
And this is where you get to...
And supportive.
Right? Not a single arrest.
Inclusive.
Right? Inclusive of everyone. So the power's there.
Yeah.
Right.
How do we tap into it?
That's what we're trying to figure out through conversations like this.
Right.
Exactly.
And like you said, it's about access, right? For anyone, whether it's minority or women. Someone asked me earlier today, what is one of your biggest business challenges? And I said, access to capital, access to real estate, access to information. Access, that's it. I am motivated, I am, directed, I know exactly what I want, but if doors don't open, if you're not at the table, or certain parties who can influence and affect change, then what can you do if you don't have access?
Yeah, and I mean that's a real thing. I mean, I look at some of my peers who've been sort of on a parallel trajectory, and a lot of them have been a lot more successful than I have because they've had business partners that have swept in and done that part of it. I mean, I'm kind of a one-woman show in terms of not having that absolute business partner. I've tried a few times and actually not had great success with finding the right person, and so I do all that stuff myself. So I'm doing the business side of it and I'm doing the creative side of it, and it's a lot. It's it's really cumbersome, and it's and I sort of look at my peers out there, and they've got it nailed, and they've got somebody that's managing that whole side of fundraising and real estate acquisition and all of that stuff. And I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons why that's the case, but.
Well, I think
I do have a really strong partner. Larry Mindell being a very strong partner, and I've learned a ton from him. But also, he's great about working with women, and very respectful. And so I've had a really great experience. I've been really lucky.
Yeah,
and I also came to restaurants very late. I mean, I've only been in this for 5 years. You've been how many?
34.
Right, and you?
Same 30.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but as Traci was saying, I can give a lot of examples of, her peers who are male that are not as talented, but they get the access and they have, major,
Empires.
Empires, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And because men tend to finance men and they tend to, create a team. And a banker told me that years ago in Boston, like it'll be like a football team. Let's just get together and make this happen. Let's win. And, we don't operate in that same way, women. We're more collaborative and, I don't know, it's
Maybe
different.
we should have just learned to play golf.
Yeah, I tried that too. No, I know. I still regret that. My
It's
dad
a
was
joke,
golf
but
and-
I did take golf lessons because so many important meetings happen on the golf course.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the Google Food program has been working on over the past 5 years is a small business incubator program, specifically around food trucks, right? So we have a food truck fleet here that we created in partnership with Off the Grid, but we have a small offshoot of that called Instructional, where we get people, especially women and minorities, who want to operate a food truck and have an idea, and then we work with them over time to incubate their concept and design their truck and their menu, and then we teach them how to operate it, and then we let them operate it on campus to get going for a year, and then we send them out into the world. And I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm thinking that there's potential offshoot here where we could begin growing an incubator to connect people with the access, because if Google's whole mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible, and I think that there's potential we should discuss to
Right. And I don't think we
grow.
really addressed your, how could the tech and how does that come
can we do?
through?
But that's,
go ahead.
No,
Traci.
you go. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, again, it's accessing to diverse communities, if, where I am in West Oakland, not everybody has internet access or computer access.
We're working on that.
Yeah, I think
literally.
that'd be really,
I mean, that's
really great.
universal internet is a huge project in multiple ways at Google right now, and I think we'll make some progress on that, but still.
And also realize, in particular, well, you have a restaurant now. In the restaurant business, we have such a diverse social economic background, diversity as well. So, a lot of our employees don't have the same access, and that's where we are very different from the tech world. Most everyone who works with you, even though they might be different ethnicities, they have a college degree, similar economic background, but we are just all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that's true maybe of Googlers, but we, even just on the food team, have like 4,000 partners who help us operate our program, who are everything along the spectrum of kind of socioeconomic status.
Oh, great.
So we think quite a lot about quality of life for those people and the jobs that they're in, and growth within those jobs, and quality of life. Many of them commute in several hours and work another job in the day. So
well, then this might be a sore subject, but we got to figure out how we don't lose all of our good cooks to you guys.
I agree. I need them, but I know you need them too.
It's really challenging for us in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were speaking
really
about this a little bit, like the flipping of the model for kind of not only wages within the food, especially in the Bay Area, but within what the jobs even are.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you think are some of the things that you see shifting that are going to continue to evolve in the coming years?
I think that there's just got to be greater efficiency. I mean, it's, in traditional restaurants, you sort of go through this whole process of taking, a carrot from, sort of dirty from the field and processing it down the road. I think that, having some consolidation of those efforts that we all repeat in our individual places are solutions that could happen around things like food prep. I think we need big solutions. The economic model is just not working in restaurants anymore at all. Sure. And, we all believe in, higher hourly wage and minimum wage, and believe in it absolutely, and healthcare for everyone. Right. There's no question that those things should be in place. However, the burden to us as business owners is too great, and is taking out, our entire profitability. And, we're in a crisis, and that crisis has really started, I think, in San Francisco, because we've been enduring these business burdens for, 8 to 10 years now. But that's starting to kind of march across the country. And as that happens, we're going to see a lot more people respond to it. And you see it a lot in the press these days. The model's really broken, and we need a new one. And so we've got to find those efficiencies. It's not clear, though. I mean, I don't think it's clear to anybody what that path is.
I think it's especially hard in San Francisco. It's really hard, and especially because of tech. I mean, it's really difficult.
Well, and
it's difficult to find front of house, back of house, everything.
It's the cost of living too, and it's I mean, I think that the city created a lot of subsidies for these big companies to come in and have San Francisco as their headquarters, which has driven up the real estate prices and made it really untenable for the minimum wage folks to be able to survive. And even at $16 an hour, that minimum wage is not going to solve the problem. Yeah. Not even close. It's the same conversation we're seeing everywhere.
Yeah. Whereas, I don't know about you, but I wasn't paid when I cooked in France. Like,
Nope.
We made investments in our career, but it's not really feasible anymore for people to do that, to work for free, to work for cheap, thinking like, I can
I'll sleep on a park bench, it'll be fine. Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So what problems can a company like Google help to solve? What could we do to help at a large scale?
I don't know. Subsidize our line cooks.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right? And maybe there's some mutual benefit, like, they work for us for a couple of years and then they come to Google cafeteria,
Housing would be good.
I think there has to be an appreciation for the tactile nature, I think, of food. The hospitality industry, we're nourishing people, we're welcoming them into an environment where we're taking care of them, and we need greater efficiencies in terms of how that's done. But you also don't want to make it so technological that you lose that tactile relationship with it. I mean, it's there's probably some virtual way that you could eat food, right? But would that
doesn't
really
sound delicious?
No, it doesn't. And it's so basic to our nature. Food is just such a basic thing. You don't really want to take it so far away from it. It's really special in that way. And so it's challenging, I think, because you can think of a million technological ways in which you could change the experience in a restaurant. But do we really want to do that? I mean,
I don't think maybe front of house, not as much. It
Yeah.
seems there's got to be some efficiencies or innovations in the kitchen space or in the supply chain or production chain or some of those jobs, like we were speaking a little bit about dishwashers, dishwashing.
Right.
It's really difficult to find dish machine operators, and similarly really difficult to find people to pick the food, right? Those jobs, we find the median age rises year over year over year because there aren't younger people coming into those roles. So those are the places where we look for the potential for technology to really change the game.
And I think it is going to be in robotics and the ability to do some kind of basic prep stuff that could be a lot of innovation around, like a machine that can shuck fava beans and take the the membrane off of them and that kind of stuff, because it takes hours and hours and hours of people's time to do that kind of thing, and it's not efficient, and to have a human being doing that is not necessary.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things we try to do for our chefs teams here is we're always looking for ways to cut out the lowest value, least satisfaction jobs. So that people can do better, more creative work. Right? We always say, you use the robots for the work that nobody wants to do.
Right.
And then let the people do the really good stuff.
Yeah, like trash. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's the last thought that anyone ever puts into designing something, but it is so important. And it's just, I talk about garbage a lot. I don't know why. It's just, because it's like a big thing in kitchens.
It's a huge thing. And in fact, I'm very interested in your thoughts. So waste and waste management and environmental impact is really big here. Like, how do you think about waste in your operations?
Well,
Carefully.
Well, it's really interesting because I think it was about 14 years ago that I set about trying to figure out how to. It was before San Francisco had a really great composting program, and so we started to sort of do it ourselves and figure out a program where we could contain the waste and send the compostable stuff back to the farmers, and we're sort of at the forefront of that whole idea. I mean, again, we can create much greater efficiency with regards to all that, because it is still pretty archaic in terms of how it's done, and
but we're much more efficient than we were.
Yeah,
I mean, much
way.
more.
And and
Even
that
just a few years ago.
leaving a lot less of an environmental footprint.
Right.
I mean, we now the percentage of our garbage that goes to landfill is now less than 10%. Where 14 years ago when we started this work, it was probably more like 90% because it was probably just bottles that were being recycled. So that's a great leap. But you sort of think about the sorting and all of that stuff that still goes on, and we could create much greater efficiency because it's still going from me to the garbage facility, getting composted, when it really should just be going directly back to the farms because we already have those pathways. And so, why isn't that happening?
We have a community garden down the street that we compost with, so it's literally 3 blocks away. So that's been really helpful.
Perfect.
Yeah, so our compost, because we used to let it build up and then it gets really stinky and we get flies and all that stuff, but now we don't have to worry about that. But
That's great, and you
Yeah.
can see it going right back into your
yeah.
community.
And we're ahead of the game in the Bay Area as well,
Yeah.
too. We're
Way
go back
ahead. Yes,
east,
we
you're
are.
like, what?
Right.
I mean,
Where do
New
you put the
York, I think,
recycling?
Yes.
I don't think they still don't have green waste there, I
Right.
don't think.
Right.
And it's like,
crazy.
they're taking all this garbage and putting it on these barges and sending it out to
Right.
landfill. It's insanity.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
truly frightening.
Yeah.
I can't even think about that.
yeah.
So what do you see as the future of food? Where are we going with food in America? What's next?
Well, I mean, I know what I don't want to see. I don't want to see so much automation that, we're not having dining experiences. There's so...
No more, not Eatsa can't take over the world. Nobody there to talk to order your food.
No, I mean, a combination of it, and I understand, grab and go, the importance of that, but I think we
Fast
still...
casual.
Yeah, we still, and I'm working on a fast
doing it.
casual.
No, I know.
So everybody
Me
is,
too.
Because we're trying to make money in our industry,
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's where the curve is going is that fast food and what we've done as fine dining for so long are starting to merge together.
True.
And we're seeing, I think, also food TV has changed. Food, when I started 34 years ago, what we did in fine dining was just this very small, was for a very small section of the population. And now food is in everyone's living room every
Right.
night. And
Yes,
that's what,
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank
Well,
you, Joanne.
I did see you on Top Chef Masters.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's true.
And it's, you can look at it, positively or negatively. I feel like we've had this whole world opened up now where everyone in the United States and beyond knows about, our restaurants and our food and food culture. And there's an aspiration, even if they've never been exposed to it, that they think sort of in the back of their mind, like, I want to go and eat in this particular kind of restaurant one day.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. I mean, it's and that's, I think.
I want to go to Norway and eat in this particular restaurant.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I think what's really great is the simplicity and the direction of that and the focus on ingredients. I think it's so great, and I know we've been going that way for so long, but I think right now, I love that. I think that's, I'm so happy that that's how people are thinking. And I know your food is probably not in that direction, and I'm so happy that it's not molecular gastronomy. But I think the one thing that you do very well, though, is to really, you're able to find things through Google. So we really have to thank you for that, because we can find anything and anything we want to eat or anything we want to buy or any place we want to go to eat. So thank you
Organizing
for
the world's
that.
information
Thank
and
you.
making it universally
Thank
accessible.
you.
Yes, I will pass that
So
along.
you continue
You are
to
in
do
charge of
that. Thank you.
We will. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, so maybe, I don't know, a Google Cafe or like a little Google station in West Oakland that neighborhood could have access to information,
we've been lobbying for
something.
an Oakland outpost.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us who live in the East Bay who
Yeah,
wish
we need
that
something
was the
in
case.
West Oakland, though, that could also benefit the community somehow. It's sort of like the last frontier that's like right in the center of the Bay. That's still a very underserved community.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
We'll circle back.
Okay.
We'll talk afterwards. I like it.
Selfishly, of course, I want you there too.
Well, absolutely. So when you're not cooking, what do you love to do?
Travel.
Eat.
Eat and travel. Travel
Those
and
go
eat.
together, I think.
Yeah,
you travel
yeah,
to
for
eat
sure,
at different
for
places.
sure.
No, I don't.
Or at least I do.
Things, yeah.
What?
Yeah, definitely travel to eat, for sure. Yeah.
My job isn't a lot of cooking anymore, sadly. So
God.
I actually cook at home a lot.
That's
you know,
isn't
what
that
it-
the best?
Yeah, it is
So
the best,
great.
and it's a totally different experience than cooking in restaurants. So it's become sort of a hobby. It's become a hobby now. You know,
That's true. I'm the same.
instead of a profession.
I made this this year, January 1st. I was like, I am not going to sit in front of the computer all day anymore. I mean, I still do it, but I said I'm going to cook more. I'm really going to cook more, and I've been doing the same and loving it, because that's the thing that I love the most. I mean, obviously that's why we all got into it, and we stepped so far away from it.
Okay, so you had a really rough day. What do you make for yourself?
Roasted chicken.
Oh, that's mine.
Roasted chicken.
I
That would be
make
mine.
I make Mexican food. I mean, it
All right,
just
that's your comfort
that's my comfort food. So
What's your go-to?
I love to make carnitas. That takes a little while. It's kind of a long cook time, but any kind of tacos. I love making salsas. I make all different kinds, and love to make them at home. I mean, the other day I made a really simple one. It was just broiled tomatillos. And chopped up serrano chili and cilantro. I mean, it was so simple because I just didn't have anything else. Usually I use a lot of dried chilies, and it was incredibly delicious. I mean, I just ground it in a molcajete because I didn't even want to turn the blender on, and I just wanted the quiet.
You wanted to cook. You really wanted to get in
I just
there.
wanted the whole tactile experience, and dead simple and so delicious. 3 ingredients.
What about you, Tanya?
I go out.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
So where do you go?
I love to be served. I love the dining experience,
So
on
where's
my
your
day off.
favorite place to go right now?
Actually, I really love the Cook and Her Farmer. I love Romney.
I was just there last weekend.
She's just, her flavors are so good. Her food's so clean and
Swan's
local.
Market in
Yeah.
Oakland.
I
Amazing
usually sit
food
there at the counter and talk
stalls.
to her while she's
Cooking Her
cooking,
Farmers, one
which
of
is
them.
what I hate when people do to me. They talk about
right.
but
Right.
she's good. She talks. We talk back. We talk
yeah,
about the
you check it
business,
out.
how we can't find help, and how expensive it is,
Sorry
and
about
all that. But anyways,
I have to tell you my other one because I've been spending a lot of time in Morocco, and I've been making tagines left and right. When you started to talk about Mexican, mine is Moroccan right now. I love
I love those flavors.
love the
yeah.
flavors, preserved lemons and cumin, and love it.
Amazing. So, favorite Bay Area restaurant? You got me thinking about it with Cooking Her Farmer right now, not one of your own.
I love Octavia right now.
I haven't been there yet.
I love it. It's right around the corner from my house. It's so easy, but I like it.
What do you think?
I still go back to Zuni all the time.
I love
mean,
Zuni, too.
it's like, I probably have been to that restaurant more than any restaurant in my entire life. And I just always love it. It's just the vibe, it's that room. And the new chef, just bless her, is really upholding
And it's a woman.
Judy's whole vision for food, and it hasn't changed, which I think is remarkable. That her vision is still preserved, and it's really difficult to kind of nail that really simple food, and to hold up that kind of tradition. And that restaurant's been there for a really long time, and I just really appreciate the old. I mean, that's my go-to place.
I love that. What's another great spot in Oakland?
Well, the Wolf just opened, and I love their other restaurant, Wood Tavern, and their chef is a woman, Yang, and they just created a really good vibe in there. It's it's historically the Bay Wolf for many, many years, and he wanted to turn it over to some local restaurateurs. He actually asked me, but it wasn't the right opportunity for me, and they've done a fantastic job. Again, food, it's really simple and accessible, but really well done. And I think
exciting.
that'll become my new favorite.
Oh, good. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
That's it. So you were telling us a little bit about your new spot. So what's next? Share.
Well, I'm working on a location in the Ferry Building. I have the lease there, and so we're designing it and going to call it Brown Sugar Kitchen Counter. Fingers crossed, will be open up in about 6 months. Also working on a second, I don't know, I'm totally crazy, a location in Oakland, bigger and badder Brown Sugar Kitchen.
I like it.
And a Napa location, hopefully in a couple years, and then we'll see. I want Brown Sugar Kitchens everywhere, so that's my goal. I don't know who's going to run them, but and then another cookbook, kind of in the works, and maybe some TV stuff. So
not too many things.
Yeah,
Nah.
sitting quiet at
Resting
home.
on your laurels. I like it. What about you?
So I'm in pre-production for my next TV show. So it's called Plates and Places, and we just shot in Morocco, in Italy, and in Greece, and we're shooting in October. We're shooting in France, from Lyon to Arles on a barge. Oh, wow. So that's a really exciting project because
Sounds
it's
terrible.
I know.
I'm sorry that you have to go through that. It's taxing, clearly.
Yes, exactly. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. But anyway, so
Work as a translator.
you're right. In Russian.
No, in French. Je parle français un peu mieux. French better.
So I'm doing that, and I'm also working on opening a cafe within the University of Massachusetts, which is where I went to school, a Mediterranean cafe. It's funny because I opened Copita, which is Mexican. I wrote 16 books about the Mediterranean and write one book about tequila and opened a Mexican restaurant. But I do like tequila, and so I'm not a swilling woman, but I like tequila. But anyway, so those are the two projects I'm working on right now. And who
really
knows
exciting.
if there's going to be another Copita. I'm sure there will be.
And I know you have a new endeavor, but what's on the horizon?
Which new endeavor are you talking about?
New. What's on the horizon?
Jardinier is turning 20 in September, and so I'm kind of focused on celebrating that. And
Rightfully so. Congratulations.
I like to say nothing's new because I've got plenty on my plate right now, but that's never true. I'm thinking about the next sort of iteration of Jardinier, the 2.0, if you will. It's time for a little change and a shift in sort of. I think it's an homage to my protégés that have come up and are dedicated and loyal to me, and letting them have a say as to what they want that restaurant to be like. And so that's a conversation we're having.
That's a really beautiful idea.
Yeah. So it's time for me to kind of pass the torch and let the others really rise up and have it be theirs. So it's a great transition.
And how has it been owning a spot in the Presidio? It's a little different.
Yeah, so the Presidio restaurants are in conjunction with Bon Appetit Management Company.
They are also our partner.
Yes, I know that. And I've had incredible opportunities with and through Fidel Bauchio, and he's just an inspiration always. He's a complete visionary. And so the Presidio restaurants are a work in progress. I've got really incredibly talented chefs out there, and we're toiling in a way to get people to come out to the new frontier, which is at the edge of San Francisco.
Because there hasn't traditionally been that type of offering in Presidio.
But the Presidio and working with the Presidio Trust has been incredible. I mean, it's just an amazing park and land, and just a really important part of San Francisco and the future. So
I'd love to see it develop more in that arena and just bring a different type of traffic to the Presidio, a different type of experience there.
Yeah, we have gardens and we're able to grow food there, and so I feel like we're just at the sort of beginning of our food program there and where it can go, and they're building that whole parklands, and so there's lots of exciting stuff to come out there.
That's great. As we're talking, I hear you guys saying all of the different things that you're doing and this vast spectrum of opportunities and roles and hats that you wear. Like, how do you keep it all balanced? And if you know, I really want you to tell me because I'm trying to figure it out.
I think we all agree, right?
Yeah.
There is no balance.
There's no balance.
I'm more balanced now, though, than I was in the past, so it's much better. God.
So is it just shifting your focus over time or in the moment, whether it's long term,
I think it probably goes in cycles. Like, for me right now, I feel like it's all happening at once. I have all these new opportunities to open operations, but I was kind of on a plateau for a while, and then I was able to really do a lot more traveling for fun and other things that I wanted to do. So, it's sort of like you put the time in the bank, and then you work a lot, and then you go and you take some time off, and it's kind of how it goes, I think.
I do think as a woman and as female, it is easier to balance all those things because I do many things in one day. I can be working on one project and then jump into something else that I think for me, that's possible to do. And so I can't see doing it any other way. I love doing what I do, and I love all the different projects. If I only did one, it wouldn't be good for me, I think.
When I had only one restaurant, I could be there all the time, and it was only open 6 days a week. And so, I pretty much was in the building running it for every hour that it was open. As I expanded, I figured out that I couldn't perform a particular role in any one of the restaurants, or I was really going to fall short in my obligation to my team. And so now I kind of float between them and don't. And so there's the freedom in that. And it's almost as the busier you get, the easier it is to kind of take time off because you don't perform a particular function in any one of those places. So I think unplugging every once in a while, and I don't think I've really done it in like 3 years because it's so easy with all of our devices to stay connected.
Right.
But I just went to Indonesia and was in a really remote place and didn't look at my email or my phone for a whole week. And it's just really important to do that. And it turned out I didn't think I was going to have access to the internet, but I did, and I chose not to. And it was an epiphany for me because I realized I can make that choice. I can just turn the stuff off and not look at it.
And the world didn't end, right?
Did not end.
It's always the fear.
Yeah.
Everything will be fine.
Yeah.
What does it look like when you disconnect?
I don't think I do it very often. I really don't, not enough. Doing that for 1 week, all I'm thinking about is how many emails it would be after. That's all I can think about.
I'm still digging out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
But it was worth it.
But I do, yes. Yeah. No, when you said it, I thought, I'm going to try that. Yeah. But no, I just don't do it very often. I mean, I travel and I'm still looking and I'm still staying connected. I am. I mean, if I don't look at email for a whole day, I think that's really an accomplishment.
It is. I mean, It sounds like it is for you. I think it absolutely is. What about you, Tanya? How do you get away from it?
It's hard to. I mean, I kind of made a vow to myself that I was going to go to Maui at least once every year, and if I'm in the water, I can't take my phone.
That's a good goal to have.
Right. Yeah, I can't take my phone in the water, so I can't.
Right.
Or really on the beach, get sand in it.
It gets
so
hot
that's like
too.
My, getaway.
I like that. I feel like it's a little bit sad that we have to trick ourselves into being disconnected.
But
now.
as soon as I get back to the hotel room, I'm like,
right.
Well, balance.
We were checking into the hotel. Can you give me the Wi-Fi code?
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you, but I would also like to give our audience a chance to ask some questions. It's a little silly because I have to repeat your question so that people on the live stream can hear it, but if you can bear with me through that, I'd love to answer anything anybody has to ask. Okay, I'm going to be super concise. How do you compare the quality of food here in America to food elsewhere in the world? It was much better stated by you.
One thing that I'd like to say, because I work a lot in Europe, is it depends which country you're in. I mean, for example, in Italy, the ingredients are incredible, but I think we in the Bay Area are so spoiled that our food, our ingredients are exceptional. But I do see in traveling around the U.S., because I teach around the U.S. a lot too, I see that the quality of food is getting better and better and better everywhere. So,
yeah, I agree that we're just spoiled here.
We are.
So any place by comparison, it's like, wow, and like Joanne said, depends on the country too. I mean, I think, France, where we both learned to cook. One of the reasons why I love being there is there was a, multi-acre garden behind the school where I was. And so we were really at the source. And
right, and
I
the
learned
markets every day.
Yeah, and people shop in markets. That's their grocery store. So, but other countries, maybe not the case. I mean, what I saw when I was in Kazakhstan 2 years ago, I went as a culinary diplomat through the State Department. They have nothing to work with. There was really, potatoes, a lot of root vegetables, and, seasonality is really not really a thing there.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I moved to Virginia when I was 18 and was shocked at the produce selection or lack thereof. So I think it's even
Where in
still...
Virginia?
Roanoke.
Oh, I went to University of Virginia.
Oh, we talked about that UVA. Yes, I did not, but nearby. What do you think, Traci?
I think there's always the opportunity. I come from the Central Valley, a small town in the Central Valley, which is the breadbasket of the country, really. A lot of food's grown out there. But it all got exported, and moved from where I grew up. So we had a really paltry selection of stuff in the grocery stores there.
The irony of that.
What's that?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was insane. I mean, it was like, and it was moved from someplace else to come to, the grocery store in the town. So we grew a lot of our own food in a kitchen garden. if you got a little tiny bit of space, you can
Right.
grow food. And, you see that, I think, a lot, like the farmers market, the Alamany Farmers Market in San Francisco, a lot of those folks are old ethnic families that just grow this stuff in their backyards. And it's really interesting that there's, sort of this opportunity to grow food in all kinds of little tiny places and diversify the selection that you have at your fingertips. So
Yeah, that's something we care a lot about.
Yeah.
We were just talking about kind of sock gardening and ways that we can move into land that is severely underutilized and put in high-performing farming systems just to bring fresh food to those types of
neighborhoods
communities,
where it's
just to
really
neighborhoods.
communities that it's really needed, and it doesn't require a lot of space, and so
No, not
that's,
at all, yeah.
And that's kind of the way that it used to be done. I mean, people
Right.
really used to grow their food in their backyard and raise their own chickens and eat those, and it was just a different relationship to food. The industrialization of it here has really, I think, affected poorly our environment and diversity of products that we have, and has really had a negative impact on food sources.
I'm hopeful that we're swinging back in the right direction with that.
I think the interest is goes a long ways. That
Yeah.
people's curiosity, and that's where I can really say thank God for Food TV and the information that Google provides the world, that we can really be aspirational in what we seek.
What advice would you give to your 25-year-old self looking back?
Go. You go first. That's
Okay.
fine.
So I am completely fascinated with Mexican food, and if I could have my time back that I've put into my culinary career, I would take a really deep dive into Mexican food, because I think there's still so much to discover, and I wish I had the time to go for that discovery. So I think picking an area of interest and taking a deep dive into it, even though I think we are overstimulated now, and there are so many different opportunities that I think that sometimes we don't really thoroughly explore a certain thing that we might be interested in. I mean, it could be baking, it could be any number of things to really take the time and learn about a subject really thoroughly.
I would say for me is the best education that you can possibly get, and also the best experience, and then making connections along the way.
I probably would have said, you should have stayed engineering school and got an
my
MBA.
But that sounds so boring.
That's the problem. It might be
Right.
but it's
If-
probably not right.
Well,
Food is fun.
unless you're passionate about
fun.
engineering, you could be passionate about
I
engineering.
did follow my passion, and
Right, me too.
family
We
members
all
thought
did.
I was a little crazy, and what was I doing, especially when I did have opportunity to do other things. But follow your passion, for one.
Yes.
And you do have to keep reinvesting in yourself, so don't always chase the money. Sometimes the experience you can get for a position that might seem beneath you, or whatever. I mean, it's really worth it. Now you don't have to buy magazine subscriptions like we did. You can go online. But I was always
Google.
buying
You could Google.
always buying cookbooks, attending events, networking, as Joanne said. Continue to make contacts with people, make yourself known, get to know people. I wish that I had just continued to seek out just a chef that was going to take me under their wings. I just kind of settled into jobs. I was like, okay, it's not going to happen here, but I'm just going to work through this. But I wish I just kept trying to find that one chef who would have mentored me. But then I just was like, I got to do this on my own, because there was a certain place I wanted to be in my career.
Being that maybe you were
You mean right now?
How do you deal
Shouldn't say that.
with
the boss.
men taking direction from you as a female leader in the
interesting.
kitchen? And has it been an issue for you?
Subtly.
I that hasn't really been an issue for me, but I can be a fairly aggressive person despite my little, small self. I think it. I could always prove myself and sort of do their jobs better than they could, and that was kind of my way of proving myself and making sure. I mean, size matters, I guess, and sometimes there were things I couldn't pick up, but other than that, I could, for the most part, I could work circles around them, and that was my method of making them listen. So I don't know if that's, maybe that's an answer that's particular to me, but, just, really, I think dealing with it head on and asking them the question as to why they don't think that they, should be listening to you, and making the point.
Call it out.
Yeah, I have to agree a little bit with Traci, but since we are talking gender, I have to tell the story. I was standing by the counter looking at my cooks one day, from outside, just making sure everything was going all right. And there was a couple next to me, and the man looked at his wife and said, "Oh, that guy must be the head chef." And I was just like, "Excuse me?" And so this perception is, it's still going on. Just because he was the tall white dude in the kitchen, I'm like, that's my worst cook. He's like, thinking to myself, like, this guy.
And he just saw that, actually. He's watching this video.
Well, there's been a lot of tall white guys that have come to the kitchen. So,
It's that insidious,
Yeah.
just institutionalized perception.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm so hopeful with shifting over time.
We have to. Yeah.
We have to. We have time for one more question.
Your future from there.
Yeah, how is risk and how do you address it, and did it make a difference?
I had just finished, I studied in France for a year with Madeleine Kemen, and I came back and I thought I was going to just conquer the world. And there were 2 restaurants that I was trying out in. One was Square One and the other one was Chez Panisse. And I remember deciding that Chez Panisse was definitely the place for me. And I worked there for 2 weeks for free. And I remember every single day I would meet with David Tanis, and he would say, would you come back tomorrow? And I kept going, God, I got to come back tomorrow again for free. And I did that for 2 weeks, and then it went on for another week. And then it went on for a few more days. And I remember going home one night and crying and going, oh my God, this is really, really crazy. Should I do this? Should I really stick this out? And the next day, thank God, I got offered a job. But it was really the right thing for me, and I'm so happy that I did it. It was such an extraordinary experience for me to be there for 5 years. And even to this day, I go back there and I continue to work because I love the food. I love the whole philosophy, and it taught me so much about my life and who I am and how I hire people and how I work with people. So I wouldn't turn back.
What do you guys think?
Opening my restaurant in West Oakland in 2008,
Right.
a lot of people saw that as a risk, and I just, I was just desperate to have a kitchen to work in, and I knew that there was a bit of a captive audience in the community, and I had to get in my car to get a cup of coffee. I lived about 5 blocks from there, and I just believed, if I built it, they would come, and I called
Yeah, worked out.
the really, kind of happy accident, because I was actually shopping around a Creole bistro concept that was going to be more upscale, but I could not, no one would lease to me because they said, you've never owned a restaurant. I was looking to be in the financial district and business district of Oakland, and that's where I landed, so you just have to go for it. And like I said, now I have this brand that it's beyond me. I mean, I haven't even, it's not something that it was never my intention to get up at 5 a.m. to go cook eggs, okay? But it's good. You just risk are worth it most of the time, yeah.
Memorable risks for you?
Every day.
Every single day.
I mean, the restaurant industry is such a high-risk business. I don't think that there's really anyone that's risk-averse that's in it. But I've taken on this sort of new challenge in the last, 5 years, to kind of pick something that I'm super afraid of every year and overcome that fear. And there are lots of them. I used to be terrified to sit and talk in front of people, and address a room full of people. Used to make me lose sleep for 3 weeks. So I kind of have picked a thing and tried to get past it. Recently, I was in Indonesia, and I've been in the water my whole life, and my family all scuba dived, and I was a competitive swimmer in school, but I never wanted to get certified to scuba dive. never wanted to be under the water with a breathing apparatus. And I was super afraid of sharks. And I went to this eco preserve there that has a ton of sharks. And I got in the water with them, and I went scuba diving. And I have found this new love for what exists under the water. And I've been avoiding it my whole life because I had these fears. And so I kind of pushed myself through these things. I mean, Top Chef Masters, I was terrified to go on TV and do that as well, and made myself do it. So sometimes if you can push through that fear and kind of face up to it, you can really discover things about yourself and find a different way to express yourself.
What a perfect way to end this conversation. I hope you all are as inspired by that as I am. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.